I think the beauty of this work is that it's so catered to the individual
Mm.
that it's not like there's a blanket formula that is applied to everybody. It's so uniquely catered to each client
Mhm.
that everybody has the freedom to express what they need to express.
Yeah.
And so just seeing what unfolds in that regard is always so beautiful and it makes such lasting effects.
Yes. Each journey is unique to the individual that's going through their journey. And that's the beauty too of SMGI is that you're clearing perhaps limited beliefs, maybe false identities, perhaps there's unresolved trauma,
Mhm.
maybe some archetypes.
Exactly. There was an analogy that Gina used one time, who, for those of you that don't know, is the developer of SMGI. And I thought it just really phrased SMGI so well. And she said that in certain types of therapy, you'll go to the part of you as a child that needed attention. And it's almost like you say, "Hi, I recognize you're hurting," and then you just leave.
Mhm.
But you're still leaving that childhood part to be alone.
Mhm.
And with SMGI, what makes it so powerful is that you're acknowledging them, you're asking them what they need, and then you're bringing them home to you. You're bringing them back with you. So they are no longer a fragmented part of you. They're coming home to the safeness of your body. And so that's just something that I find, yeah, that's so powerful about this work.
Yeah. And it's so essential. It's such an important part. It's in the traditions of many cultures, the rites of passage for a boy or a girl, that once, when they are initiated and they have their brush with death, as it were, and they
Mhm.
come home, they of course come home to the village who welcomes them home as the initiated young man or initiated young woman. And that is so key because that's essentially it's honoring the experience that part or this young man or young woman has gone through to get to where they are because they've made that shift into their new way of being. And essentially that's what's going on here in with these sessions in SMGI.
What do people typically come to work with you for? What sort of symptoms or things might they be experiencing when they reach out to you?
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a great question. People come to me with issues of self-worth, lack of self-confidence. I know for myself, one of the issues that I worked on was that I mattered, or that the issue was I didn't matter. And
Right.
so that just a lot of times put me in a tailspin. But once I cleared that, I was able to realize that I do matter and I'm not alone. And also, I get a lot of people who come to me with issues of pain, both physical and emotional, but physical as well. I want to share a story with you of a session I did with a woman who had a cyst
Mm.
on just in her chest area. And it was, she could feel it. It bothered her a little bit. And I said, okay, let's see what happens. So and during our session, we went to that cyst and it turned out it was something that it was cluttered and needed to be cleared. And
Mm.
so we cleared it and we stored it in a container of her choice to be sent away so it would do no harm to anyone, anything, anywhere. And after the session, she reached for her chest and she was like, her eyes got big and she said, "Oh my God." I said, "What?" I said, "It's gone."
Oh my God.
I said, "The cyst gone." She said, "Yes." But she was just she was amazed at that. In the same session, she also had a shoulder issue that was constantly bothering her. Again, we journeyed, and she, a Chinese woman showed up, and this Chinese woman was carrying just a huge burden for her, just a huge burden. So we unburdened her and rescued that part and reintegrated her back. And after the session, lo and behold, she had much less pain in her shoulder.
Wow.
And so she physically felt better afterwards and still does to this day. I check in with her. And
That's
the cyst
so,
never came back.
Oh my God, that is so amazing.
So that's the power of this work. And that's the power, not just of this work, but of ourselves as human beings and our subconscious. And when we allow ourselves to be receptive
Mhm.
to our subconscious and to
Exactly.
what the messages that we're getting, then wow, miracles do happen.
They really do. And I remember in my personal experience when I first came to work with you for sessions,
Mhm.
I was experiencing a lot of familial ancestral patterns that I just couldn't break. And I just was getting so triggered all the time by my family, and I couldn't really understand why I kept facing these brick walls, even
Mhm.
though I knew it wasn't anything, or I couldn't figure out what I was doing. I just kept reaching a dead end.
Mhm.
And in our sessions, I really came face to face with these familial patterns and I was able to break them. And it almost felt like I was just running through this brick wall and I no longer face most of those triggers. I think
Beautiful.
it's one of those things where it can address, yeah, physical pain and emotional pain, but also things that maybe people can't really figure out why they're experiencing these
Yeah.
symptoms. So, at least for me personally, it was like profoundly helpful.
Yeah. There's a beauty and shared intimacy that's occurs in this work.
It's a safe space for anything that might come up. That's one thing that originally drew me to the work was feeling like I couldn't really figure out what was missing in my life. I knew there was like, if you have, think of it in terms of a puzzle, it's like there was one piece that was missing.
Mhm.
And I tried a bunch of things. Eventually, I was just like, okay, I was recommended to this by someone. I'm just going to try it. It might work, it might not. People have told me it's life changing, but I don't know if I really believe that. I'll just give it a try.
Yeah.
And after my first session, I was like, oh my God, okay, yes, this is life changing. This is the answer that I needed.
Yeah.
And the spectrum is such a range. You can have people like that who feel like the piece is missing, or you have people with physical pain, emotional pain, who are just willing to try anything.
Right.
And it's so applicable to whatever anybody is going through.
Yeah. Going through the online course that Gina teaches was for me the next step to um, continuing to be of service to others. And
Yeah.
one of the benefits of of going through the cohort was doing trades with other students. It's equally beneficial to be both the guide and the journeyer so that we as guides have both perspectives. Once we're go through the program, it's not like we're cast out and we're on our own. No, we have a network that we're all a part of
Yeah.
and will continue to be because again, we're all in this together and we're all doing this to support not only ourselves, but others that are needing and wanting support. So,
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I also loved about going through the program. I feel like, yes, I learned so much about being a guide when I was guiding, but I also learned arguably even more by being guided. Because
mhm,
when you're in that
mhm,
sort of hypnotic state, you're so receptive to what's coming through and just you have this heightened awareness. And it's such a beautiful energy exchange between, yeah, all members of the cohort and just having that community and knowing that we're always there for each other and learning from each other at the same time is really special.
yeah.
I would love for you to tell me more about what kind of results your clients have supported,
Mm.
or excuse me, your clients have reported in the past.
Reported uh, improved relationships. They've reported increased in their business. They've got more clients because that's one of the things that they wanted to experience, wanted to have happen.
I just love the story about the woman with the cyst. That one, not that you need physical evidence, but for that evidence to be there
Right.
is just so insane. It's so powerful.
And I was it was equally unexpected for me too. And that's the beauty of this work, is that he, the journey never knows, and the guide, where it's going to lead to. One of the things that I've noticed is that when people start to work with their subconscious in this way, all of a sudden their other parts perk up, and oh, they kind of line up. Okay, I want to get work done like this.
Yeah, next, please.
Exactly. And
And what often happens is that when you're going through the sort of eyes open hypnosis, the questions
mhm,
prior to
mhm,
the meditation, you'll think that there's something that you want to work on, and then you'll go inwards and you'll discover it's connected to something
mhm,
that is seemingly completely unrelated. But once you address that root part of you and call it home,
mhm.
all of these other things that were showing themselves and manifesting themselves in the outer world are all of a sudden addressed.
Yeah.
And so there's such a link between the root and how it's manifesting itself in your outer world. So it's such an ease-filled way to address trauma, like the easiest way I've ever experienced. My clients say the same. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this was so pleasant than other things I've experienced in the past." Something that I also really love, and for someone like me who can sometimes be very left brain, sometimes I can get really in my head. What I love about this is that there's no right or wrong answer. It just
Right.
becomes so easy.
Yeah.
You drop into a state where anything is imaginable. It's you're just out of your head, and knowing that there's no possible way that you can do anything wrong. That also, as a journeyer and as a guide, for me just makes me feel very safe and makes it a lot easier to see what unfolds.
We don't judge, we don't therapize, we don't advise. This, we are just guiding. We're just guiding. We're not telling you what path to follow.
Something that Gina has always said that I really love is the guide is the Sherpa,
Mhm.
and the journeyer is the one who's really leading the journey. So we're just
Right.
there with you, following you up the mountain, and
Mhm.
you're really doing all of the inner journey work because you know what's best for you as the client.
Yeah, exactly. That's the power of this work. And that's the power, not just of this work, but of ourselves as human beings and our subconscious.
Such an ease-filled way to address trauma, like the easiest way I've ever experienced. My clients say the same. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this was so pleasant than other things I've experienced in the past."